Welcome officially to the Cookalong. I am so excited to have you all here. I am really excited to teach you this recipe. It's one of my favorites as a healthy treat. And I even have a client who's eaten it for breakfast. So it really is super versatile. And we will dive right in, but just a few quick logistical things. I'm going to have these 3 screens that will hopefully work with me now that I'm off Wi-Fi on some of them. So if you find that, say, the close-up screen is the most helpful for you to learn the recipe, you can go ahead and find that at the top of the Zoom where all the different videos are. And if you just hover over it, there's going to be 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner, and you can click pin or add pin to really highlight that one for yourself. But we'll have those few different options. So as everyone is trickling in, I would just love for you to tell me where you're joining us from, what your favorite recipe is, and we will dive right in very shortly. Okay, great. I'm glad the tech seems to be working with us now. Stacy's joining us from Reno and loves making soup. I love making soup too. I feel like it's I used to really dislike leftovers for some reason. Like I rarely wanted to eat things left over. But soup has always been the one that's like, that just gets better and better every time you reheat it, in my opinion. So I love that answer. Maybe it's a kid thing. Stacey says her kids hate leftovers. I wonder if it's a kid thing because I kind of grew out of it. I'm much better at eating leftovers now. All right.
I'm Alicia and I'm cooking from Oakland, California. And I don't know if I have a favorite recipe, but one thing that I made last night that's kind of like we call it our feel good meal is just like baked salmon with some like kind of like tomatoey sauce on top and then like Brussels sprouts or like asparagus or kale or chard as like the simple side.
Oh, that sounds amazing. What a great feel-good recipe. I feel like just hearing you share about it, I'm like, ooh, I kind of feel healthier already. I love that. Thank you for sharing. And then Tish says, I'm in the SF East Bay area. I love too many recipes to think of one. That's a great answer. I honestly change my answer every time someone asks me this question. So I love it. Anna is also from San Francisco and too many to choose from. That makes me really happy. It sounds like you guys love cooking and that's awesome. So I'm just gonna unpin this one video here. Okay, there we go. And Andrea is from San Diego and loves goulash. Ooh, Andrea, I actually went to school in San Diego. I totally spaced that that's where you're living now. And I think I've had goulash one time when I was in Europe. So I love that you love to make that. I'd love to learn more about that. That's awesome. Beautiful. Yeah, lots of Californians in here. I don't know if it's just because that's where I'm from, but you know, attract the Californians. It's awesome. Maybe it's the timing that works out well. Awesome, awesome. So as we're just getting started, I just wanted to share a little bit about who I am. If you don't know me, or even if you do know me, maybe you'll learn something new about me, hopefully. So I am Haley Reese, obviously, and I have been a coach for the last 6 or so years, really focusing on helping people with their happiness, with anxiety, with depression. And all throughout that time, and really for as long as I can remember, one of my biggest passions in the world has been food, like cooking food, eating food, trying new foods, going to restaurants, really all the things related to food, you name it. I've worked in every facet of the food industry, from being a caterer to being front of the house, back of the house, working in a fine foods market in Oakland, which I was totally obsessed with and had the beautiful benefit of them feeding me like the whole time that I worked there, which was awesome. And food has just always been such a huge thing for me. So recently I was looking at how I could bring that passion of mine into the work that I do, into the way that I help people, really create a life full of joy, a life full of happiness, full of ease, full of pleasure. And this cook along and these different ideas and new things I'm going into just kind of unfolded from that exploration. So this is my first official cook along. So thank you so much for bearing with me on the tech glitches at the beginning. It feels like we've smoothed them out now. I did this I did a challenge from my coach yesterday where I did a messy, unprepared, just dry run in my mastermind group. And it was so much fun. And it really, to me, like the reflections that I got and the way that I felt were just like, oh yeah, this is my thing. This is what it's about for me. I am just so passionate about food and can talk about it endlessly. So now what I'm kind of saying is that I help women use food and cooking to really expand the joy, the ease, the pleasure in their lives while being kinder to themselves and to their bodies and really falling more in love with their lives. And my approach to cooking is very intuitive, it's very desire driven, and it's really rooted in listening to our bodies and listening to and learning how to feed ourselves for how we want to feel. And a little bit more about my background. So I shared how I've been all in the food industry. That kind of started when I went to culinary school in Florence when I was a senior in college, and just all unfolded from there. And then I went on to become a certified transformational nutrition coach. So I really feel like this new direction is kind of the direction that I was like meant to be taking all along, of bringing together, helping people, be happier while also doing everything I can with food. So I'm so honored and excited for you all to be here today. I hope this is going to be really fun and just like a break from your day to day. And so, yeah, I'm so excited if you can't tell. So why a cook along? I wanted to find a way to bring the way that I do food, the way that I relate to food, the way that I cook to people anywhere, because I'm such a huge fan of the online business model of being able to reach humans all around the world, even though we have a ton of Californians here today, which I absolutely love. And I thought that doing these virtual cook-alongs would be a great way to do that, because I could teach you something, you can get to make something that you get to walk away with. And it really is just such a fun way to bring my passion without you having to come and like be in my kitchen, be in my home, or like live near me or hire me as your private chef, which I know isn't always possible. Nor do I have like necessarily the ability to be everyone's private chef, as cool as that would be. So cook-alongs are just a fun way to kind of have me as your personal chef in your pocket virtually at these events. And it's really also a beautiful taste of this new offering that I created called JoyFull Food, which I will be sharing with you at the end. And also remember to stay till the end, because I'm going to give everyone a bonus black bean brownies, which is always such a mouthful recipe. So you'll get to take that with you. And it's a very similar concept to this. So I wanted to kind of share those both. I did a poll to see what people wanted, and cookies won, but I was like, I still want to give people the black bean brownies too. Stacey says, food is such a beautiful part of my daily pleasure. Yes, I agree, Stacey. Honestly, for a long time, like until I've gotten more into like exploring all the different varieties of pleasure, food was like the pleasure in my day. It was like, oh, I'm so excited for lunch. Or like when I used to work at a recruiting agency that was like very bro culture, very hustly, very just intense. My lunch break was like this beautiful escape where I was like, I always brought something delicious and just gotta get out of the office, get away from the hustle, and just really relax. And I still, even though I'm luckily in a job I absolutely adore now, my meal times are still that like pleasure break for me where it's just like, this is my time for me. And so that's also what I'm really hoping to share with all of you today. So I just wanted to do like a quick little kind of container setting. I talked about sort of the logistics of like the what, the why, who I am, but just to kind of share a little bit of my intention for today and for this space. First and foremost, you really get to show up exactly as you are. I mentioned in like the emails and the promotion for this event that you can, you don't have to cook with us today. You can just watch, you can just be in the energy, be in the vibes, you can learn the recipe and make it later. You're not expected to show up in any way but yourself. And also, whoops, I have my notes here because I can't see it on my computer. So also know that every skill level is welcome. Like I'm really going to be guiding you step by step through this recipe. And that's part of the joy of this and the joy of these cook-alongs is that I'm really going to be here to guide you, and why it was so important for me to have like a camera or phone that I can read your comments and really interact with you on. So that you're not feeling alone if you get stuck or if something doesn't make sense. Like, please just, you can unmute yourself, you can write it in the chat, and I have the chat right here to help you out. And also know that, this might be outside of your comfort zone. I know that for me, the first time I made this recipe, I had never, I've never really been vegan. So I didn't do a lot of like, non-traditional baked goods. And so I was like, I really wonder what this is going to be like. Am I going to do it right? I had all those questions. And so that's okay to, feel a little bit outside of your comfort zone in this. It's all just part of the fun, part of trying something new and the creativity. And it's absolutely not about getting it perfect or getting it exactly right. I love to share the story of how I relate to cooking now, which is that when I was younger, I used to love to do art projects, and thanks to my wonderful mom who's here, I really appreciated that when I was young, she gave us limits around how much time we could spend like on the TV or on the computer after school or on the weekend. So I was kind of forced to be creative and do something else with my time. And art was a big passion of mine and something that I did a lot. And when I want to say maybe like 6 or 7, I started like writing cards to people a lot more, like greeting cards. And when you like make a card or you buy one from the store, and you're going on, and I was a terrible speller, you're going through and you're writing out this card. And I would often misspell things, and I couldn't just scrap the whole card and be like, oh, well, it's ruined, throwing it in the trash, like gonna go to the store and buy a new one. That just wasn't my jam. And so I learned to take those little mistakes and turn them into something beautiful. I'd like draw a little picture there, or I'd even just like scribble it out and put a sticker on top. And so that's my invitation to you today, and just to you in general with your cooking, is that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get it right. You're allowed to make mistakes. And I really believe that we just get to roll with those mistakes and roll with that creativity, and make something new and beautiful with it. And yeah, so my intention, and I'm going to ask you for yours in a minute, but my intention for this event, for this time in your day, is to really just be a fun, laid back, kind of pleasure break from your normal day-to-day, where you just get to do something just for you, hopefully a little bit outside of the norm, or maybe not. And where you just kind of get to play with your creativity, and just enjoy being with all of these other amazing humans who are here for the same reason. So those are my intentions. That's kind of the container that I want to set for us. And I would love to just sort of open it up to some opening shares. You can type these in the comments, and tell us, what is your current relationship to food? And I'll just give everyone a couple minutes to kind of share, like, how would you describe your relationship to food right now? And Anna said, that's what I'm ready for, something just for me. Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here for this and giving yourself this opportunity to do something just for you. That's so wonderful. And I don't think that we are really given that permission as often as we all deserve it. Just says, I'm here for fun. Yes, me too. I honestly am so excited. If you can't tell, I've like been preparing and just, oh my God, I'm just over the moon that you're all here. Kimberly says, I eat to fuel my body for work. Yes, that is something that's really changed for me too, kind of I don't know, in the last like 5 years or so. I think as I'm like, we're all, I guess, all always getting older, but in this particular chapter of getting older in my life, I've really realized how important it is to like fuel my body so that I can perform and do the things that I want to do and not be held down or weighed back by how I'm feeling physically in my body. Tish says, food is pleasurable and nourishing. Yes. Beautiful. And Alicia says, my relationship to food is very much around nourishment, pleasure, and in general, food as a way to support my energy and a good feeling in my body. The cause and effect of food choices seems very clear in the way I feel. Relationship to cooking itself is more fraught. I'm really loving the thread that I'm noticing, how there's this mix of pleasure and fuel and nourishment that you're all speaking to. That's beautiful. And yeah, and both Andrea and Alicia are mentioning, the relationship to cooking itself is a little fraught, is a little complicated. And I really appreciate you being honest about that and sharing that, because earlier when I was talking about like why do a cook along, I also meant to mention that a big part of it is because I get so many people coming to me and telling me like, you make it look so easy, or you make it look so complex because like you're really over the top. Like I could never do that. And so my hope is with these cook-alongs is to show you that like you have everything you need to cook amazing, beautiful, delicious meals for yourself. And even if you just learn like one little tiny nugget of how to do that today, I think that's a huge, huge win. Stacy says, I'm a pretty passionate cook. I love trying new things, growing some of my own food, and also see food as one of the major components of addressing climate change in my personal life. Oh, I love that, Stacey. I definitely want to hear more all about that. And I'm just always in awe of people who grow their own food, because I do not have a green thumb. I kept my first long-term plant alive this year, and I'm really proud of myself for that. But I have a dream to have a garden one day where I'm growing my own food too. So I love that. And then Anna says, food is a way of pleasure and community. I live by myself now, so cooking just for me is boring. I used to try new recipes all the time, now not so much. Yeah, food is such an element of community. And that's another part of like why this cook along is so fun to me, because I don't always have the opportunity to like, especially, I'm still sort of in like pandemic brain of like, I can't see anyone. I can't like, I'm starting to now more and more, but I'm still kind of in that mindset of like, I can't see people and cook for them and like have people gather in person. So creating community over cooking in this way is one way I'm hoping to do that. Beautiful. And the next question I'd love to take opening shares around is, why did you sign up for the cook along? What are you hoping to get out of today? What would maybe be just one little thing that if you walked away from, these 2 hours together with that one thing, that would be like, oh, that was so worth it. I'm so glad I showed up, or that feels like a huge win for me. And if you have any intentions that you want to share, I welcome that as well. Oh, I just love hearing all of your answers about your relationships to food and cooking. It's like, it's so multidimensional. And that's a big part of why I'm wanting to start to help women through food, is because our relationship to food, our relationship to cooking can mirror so many other things in our lives. And I think that's really evident by the answers that you're all sharing. Anna said, I signed up for fun. The recipe looked tasty. I'm gluten-free, so it worked for me. Yes. Oh, I love that people are just signing up to like have fun with me today. That's so, so great. I definitely like, for those of you who know kind of the coaching work I've done in the past, it's been like very clinical, very serious, like for the majority, helping people out of anxiety and depression, which I am massively passionate about. And it can sometimes lack a little bit of the fun element. So I am just really thrilled to bring like more fun into the work, more fun into the ways I can connect with all of you, and more fun events like this. It's so great. And is it Andrea or Andrea? Please feel free to correct me because I really hate saying people's names wrong. I want to say it's Andrea.
I'm from New York, so it's Andrea, but I don't mind. Either way, I won't correct anyone in Europe, so don't worry. Or like any other country where it's not an American accent.
Oh, well, thank you, Andrea. I just am big on that because I have a very long, complicated name. And so, I've constantly had people mispronounce it, misspell it. So I always like to get people's names right. So Andrea said, Alicia shared your JoyFull Food program with me, and I wanted to get a sense of your energy in your programs. Yay! Awesome. I'm so excited about that. Yay. Okay. So I think that I'll continue, like, feel free to continue sharing as we go. But I think, what do we say? Let's dive in and start cooking. So I'm going to really just walk you through the whole recipe, start to finish. I'm going to show you exactly like how I would do it if I were cooking. And again, for me, it's not about being perfect. Like, yes, I did bring like measuring cups and things, but to be honest, I often don't use them. I also just wanted to make a note about the equipment really quickly, because for this recipe, I will say it is easiest if you have like a food processor. So I have like the Ninja multi something or other. I don't know what it's called, but it's like a food processor / blender situation. So anything like this is great. A standard food processor is great. A blender is a really good backup option. And if you don't have either of them, that's okay, because technically it will take a little bit more exercise, which isn't always a bad thing, but you can use a bowl and like a potato masher. You just want to get everything really smooth, and I'll kind of walk us through that portion. Alicia said, I signed up because I think making something outside of my comfort zone will create self-trust and show me that cooking can be easier than I think. Oh, I love that. It feels more safe to do it together. About 17 times, I already want to give up because these items feel unfamiliar in terms of where to find in store, don't have a food processor, etc. But being here and showing up anyway. I just want to like genuinely applaud you for that, because that's massive. Like, I really can't understate that enough, or overstate that enough, not understate that. I can't overstate, like, when something's out of our comfort zone, when it's unfamiliar to us, when it feels scary, when we don't have the things we need. And cooking, I mean, especially, like, cooking is one of those things that can easily feel that way. You need certain equipment, you need certain ingredients, like, depending upon what you're trying to make. And the fact that you had that feeling of like, oh, I just want to give up like 17 times over and still showed up anyway, like, is a massive success. And it's that openness and that willingness and that readiness to just go for it and try it that I know will make you successful and lead you to making some really amazing, delicious things in your life. So I'm so happy that you showed up, and I really do just like applaud you for that. And thank you so much for sharing that, honestly. Yeah, Andrea says she doesn't have a food processor either. Cool. Yes. And she said, can we use a standard mixer? Can you show me what your standard mixer is, or what you mean by a standard mixer? If you mean like a blender, absolutely. I'm not sure if that's what you meant by a standard mixer. If you mean like a stand mixer, that probably won't work as well. I'd actually say like a potato masher would be better than a stand mixer for this particular recipe. But if you clarify, I'll give you some guidance around that. Okay, so does anyone have any questions just before we dive into the recipe and get started? Feel free, again, as we go, you can unmute yourself, you can drop them in the comments, whatever is easiest. Tish, I'd say that, so she has like a hand mixer. That's gonna be harder than a blender or than a potato masher, just because like the beans will fly everywhere. Yeah, but I know you have a blender, so I would use that. Okay, cool. All right, well, like I said, unmute yourself if you have questions. One thing that I will say too, to just like normalize this and make this really real, is that like when it comes to cooking things or baking things, almost 100% of the time when I'm baking, I have to have like the recipe with me, because I don't know about you guys, but like I don't really have time to memorize recipes. And eventually I might like know something by heart because I've made it so many times. But typically with baking, it's still like, oh, you know, you kind of need the right amount of this, you need the right amount of that in order for it to turn out properly. So even though I creatively, intuitively cook and like make things without a recipe a lot, that's usually when I'm cooking as opposed to when I'm baking, I use the recipe. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna prep our chickpeas. So I have, let me see, I'll try to do a shot in each, but I just have these garbanzo beans from Vitacost in a can, nothing fancy. The way that you want to do this is just obviously open the can. And then I'm going to have to turn around and do this over the sink. But you'll want to get like a mesh strainer, or really any strainer that has holes that are smaller than the chickpeas, which I think most of them are. And I'm going to go do this by the sink in a moment, but I'll just tell you what I'm going to do and then I'll show it to you. So when you pour the chickpeas into the strainer, and you're going to want to rinse it under the water in your sink until it kind of runs clear and there's no more bubbles. You don't necessarily have to like see what the water looks like underneath. It's mostly when there's no more foamy bubbles on the chickpeas that you know you're all set. And I just kind of like shake them and jiggle them as I go. And then, yeah, so you can kind of see there's no more like foaminess on the chickpeas anymore. And then you're just gonna pop them right into your blender, your food processor, or your bowl if you're not using like an electric situation. Cool, so chickpeas is step one. I'm just gonna take this apart. And I also mentioned on the recipe, if you're just using whole oats as opposed to using a flour, then you're going to want to, and I should have mentioned this a minute ago, but you're going to want to blend those either in a blender or a food processor until they're pretty fine like a flour. But if you're not using whole oats, if you're just using flour instead, you can just totally skip that step. So then to the food processor, after you've added your chickpeas, you're just gonna go ahead and add all the rest of the ingredients. So next I like to add the nut butter. I'm using a cashew butter today. I'll kind of show it in each one. This is Trader Joe's cashew butter. I've made this recipe with cashew butter, with almond butter, with peanut butter. So you really can make it with whatever kind of butter you want. What I like about cashew butter, honestly, is that it doesn't give it too much of a flavor. Like it doesn't really take over the flavor. Whereas if you make it with peanut butter, it will like, they'll be more peanut buttery, which is a great thing if you want that. And I love peanut butter. So you're going to do a 1/4 cup of the nut butter. Least favorite thing about nut butter is that it is really annoying to get out of measuring cups. So just do your best. I will probably end up using my finger. Just kind of pour it over the top of all those chickpeas. Don't worry, I did wash my hands before this. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. So like there's residue in my cup. It is what it is. There's residue on the sides. It's going to be fine. And then next we're going to add the flour. So I guess I need my 1/4 cup measure again. Or you could just do 1/2 cup. I think I have another one here. Okay, I'm going to use my 1/2 cup. So for the flour, I'm gonna use garbanzo bean flour today. I'm gonna use like half that and half of almond flour. You could use whatever gluten-free flour, non-gluten-free flour you have. It doesn't have to be gluten-free if you're not gluten-free. And we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of that. And like I said, I'm kind of just mixing it with some almond flour. I have made this recipe with basically whatever flour I've had on hand, which for me is like anything from almond flour, coconut flour, garbanzo bean flour. I think I've probably used like tapioca flour before. I've used like the 1-to-1 gluten-free flours. So you can really use whatever you want. Just add that right in. And next up, I have to show you my favorite thing in my entire kitchen. We're gonna add the like the spices right now. And I wanna show you this because it is my favorite thing ever. This is like my biggest kitchen upgrade and I just highly recommend it because it's a great way, if you're like me and have 1,000 spices, to just see all of your spices in one place. So I'm gonna grab the cinnamon and they just like magnetize on and off. So just wanted to share that because I'm so obsessed with it. All right, so we have cinnamon, some salt. Oops. You can also kind of use any salt for this. I'm using Himalayan sea salt because it was what was easiest to pull out right now. But you could use kosher salt. You can get fancy and wild with it. I have a vanilla salt situation. Like you can use that. It's really just like we're adding a little bit of salt. And we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon. How cute are these jars? I just love them. That right in. Then we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. Got that there. Oh, there we go. Oh, that says baking soda. I have baking powder. Baking powder. Okay, this is the one I use. All right, adding the baking powder. And then I'm going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla paste. You can use vanilla extract or vanilla paste. It's totally up to you and just whatever you have, whatever is easy. I personally recently fell in love with vanilla paste. I just have found it to be like game changer. It has like a very fresh vanilla flavor to it. I think I left that back here. Hopefully I can open this. Yeah, so this is the vanilla paste I've just fallen in love with. It's called Nielsen Massey Pure Vanilla Bean Paste, and it is just phenomenal. So because I don't want to put my dirty teaspoon in there, I'm just gonna like eyeball it. Okay, that looks like a 1/4. Well, now it's like a 1/2 teaspoon. Again, all good. We're just playing and having fun. But Anna asked, is that easy to find vanilla paste? So I bought this vanilla paste on Amazon. I find it more in like specialty food stores and markets than I have. I don't think I've ever seen it at Safeway, but in terms of Amazon, it's pretty easy to find. I found some good options. And if you saw in the email that I sent out as one of like the first ones after you registered, it has a link to my Amazon shop. And this vanilla paste is in that, in my store, I mean. Okay, great. So we've gotten the cinnamon, the baking powder, the salt, the vanilla extract or vanilla paste, and now we're going to add a 1/4 cup of pure maple syrup. And I think this one's brand new. Okay. You can also use sugar. You can use like brown sugar, white sugar, really kind of whatever you want. I have just kind of taken to cooking or baking more with maple syrup recently. I find it gives it a nice taste, and I don't know if this is actually legit, but it feels healthier in some small way to me. Feels less processed, perhaps. And I am just like such a fan of real pure maple syrup. I've never been into like the Aunt Jemima type or the like, I don't know, the not real maple syrups. Yeah, Tish says maple syrup does have some health benefits. So for some reason like it just feels a little bit better than sugar sometimes to me personally. I'm really into like making healthy swaps. Or to like making really delicious, indulgent things, but that are just like a little bit healthier, or like swapping out something for something else that has some better health benefits. So adding that maple syrup in. Oh, especially grade B. Oh, that's good to know. I'm gonna buy that next time. This is grade A. So that's so good to know. Thank you, Anna. All right, got our maple syrup, and now we have everything in there, except for the chocolate chips, or if you're adding like flake sea salts, you could add walnuts, like really whatever you want to add. We just want to reserve the sea salt and the chocolate chips, like the sprinkled sea salt on top and the chocolate chips until the very end. So now that we've gotten everything in the food process, besides those ingredients, we are gonna blend it up. Yeah, Cece says, love these alternatives. I've been trying to decrease my processed sugar consumption as part of decolonizing my diet. I love that. I've been trying to do that too, because I mean, sugar is just one of those things that can throw a lot of things off in our body. And I am a recovering sugar addict, as I think a lot of us who grow up like eating the sad American diet tend to do. Like, it's just sugars in absolutely everything. So my personal favorites or alternatives are maple syrup, honey, and I like stevia. Not everyone does. I use like a liquid stevia, but that in my coffee like is a perfect replacement for me. Alicia said, is there a recommended setting for the blender? There's a button called mix. I would try mix. I think that one would be good. The goal here is that we're just gonna kind of process it until it's smooth, creamy, and well combined. So it's really gonna look like a cookie batter. And you'll see with mine when I show it to you. I'm thinking, for the sake of all of your ears and the recording, I'm gonna mute myself while I process it because it's quite loud, and then I'll unmute. Okay, so you'll kind of see where mine's at right now. This is just like what I kind of consider the first round of blending this, because generally, especially with food processors, you tend to like, and blenders really, like you tend to get some stuff still around the edges that's not really blended in yet. So that's where a spatula comes in handy, and it will later too. I love this spatula. It says made with love, which is true. I make all my food with love. So you can just use a spatula to go like right around the sides there. And there you go. And just kind of like smush it into the middle. Perfect. So after I do, lost my spatula. After I do that, I'm going to blend it again. So I'm just going to mute one more time for that. Okay, so mine is pretty much blended to the point that we'll need. So it kind of looks like that, if you can see in the close-up one. Pretty dough-like. It like won't come off my finger. It's kind of pasty. And that's kind of what we're going for. So I'll hold it there a little bit longer. Do you guys have any questions about where, I'm sorry, I keep saying you guys, do you wonderful humans have any questions about where we're at or any of the process so far? And you're welcome to unmute yourself. It seemingly overwhelmed the blender after the first few seconds and now it won't start. Should I just try it by hand? Great question, Alicia. Yeah, that definitely happens. Are you able to show me what type of blender you have and I can maybe help you a little bit better with that?
Yeah, let me get it. So it's kind of like this. Let's see. Can you see the blender?
Yeah. Okay, cool. And how full is it? If you tilt it up just a little bit. Okay, great. And so it kind of just started for a little bit and then stopped.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I would recommend, this is not my expert, no expert blender opinion, but I would just unplug it, let it rest for like literally like a minute.
Okay.
And then put the lid back on. And what are all the different settings that you have on your blender?
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 is snow. 2 is mix. 3 is blend. 4 is liquefy. And then 5 is puree. And then there's ice crush and smoothie settings.
Okay, cool. I would recommend using, like trying out the blend function and let's see how that goes.
Okay, cool.
Let me know how it works for you and if you need more support. As we're kind of doing that, the next part, which will take a little bit anyway, so if anyone else has questions, please just pop in and ask, or Alicia, please definitely let me know how you're doing with your blender. So the next part is to just like empty it all into a bowl where we're going to be adding the chocolate chips and all those delicious things. Like I said, you can add walnuts if you want, or whatever kind of nuts or berries or whatever you want, really. And I just like to use a spatula to get all the extra dough off of here. Great. Toss that in the sink. And then just really scrape all of that batter into your bowl. And it's very like paste-like and sticky. It tries like it's starting to do something, but then it stops. Haven't tried using the blender in use, so not sure if it's the blender itself. Alicia, based on that, it does sound like it might be the blender. One other thing you could try, which sounds annoying, but well, I'll give you like a long-term and a short-term solution. So like long-term, I mean, it does sound to me like it's the blender because like what you're putting in shouldn't overwhelm it. So it sounds more like an electrical things going on. So long-term, I'd kind of look into that. But for the short-term, you definitely can do it by hand. If you have a like potato masher would be ideal. And then you just pop everything to a bowl and just like mash a lot. So like I said, it's not always the most like easy solution, but it does work if, you know, our blenders give up on us, or if we don't have a blender where we're at, it definitely can work out. Let me know if that's helpful. Yes, I will definitely show what a potato masher looks like. So mine looks like this. It's like this kind of I don't know how to describe it, but it tends to have like holes or slats in one side, and then kind of usually this shape so that you can just like mash away. I hope that's helpful. Do you have one of those? Feel free to let me know. Not sure. Okay, cool. We'll get you squared away one way or the other. So yeah, now we have all of our batter in a bowl, hopefully, or at least mostly. And now is my favorite part because we are almost at the point where we have created our dough. It's pretty simple and easy. We're pretty much there. And I don't know about all of you, but when I did my dry run yesterday, I was sharing this with everyone how like I absolutely hate things on my fingers when I'm doing stuff. So I tend to wash my hands or just like rinse them off quickly a couple times while I'm cooking, or like have a towel nearby. So next we're gonna add our chocolate chips. I love these Enjoy Life chocolate chips because they're vegan, they're dairy free, they're really versatile for people who have allergies. Like Enjoy Life's whole line of products is all about that. Like on the back it says, I don't know if we can see this here in the little one, but it's like free from wheat, peanuts, tree nuts, dairy, casein, soy, eggs, sesame, sulfites, lupin, mustard, fish, shellfish, and crustaceans. So great for people with allergies. And the recipe says to add a half a cup of chocolate chips, but I very much play by the rules of like add however much chocolate chips you want. So it's really up to you and what you like. I don't have that tool, but could I use something like this? Ooh, let me see. Hold on, let me see you on the bigger screen, Alicia.
Spoon. It's more like a strainer spoon, but I guess I could use it to mash it.
Yeah, that actually looks great. I think you could, especially like if you have a bowl, sort of really any large shaped bowl, just press it against the sides and it should mash down. Let me know how that goes. I know it's the more vigorous, active form of making this recipe, so you won't have to work out later. All right, I am not going to measure my chocolate chips personally. I'm just going to like guesstimate what a half cup might look like. And I was telling some other women this the other day, how, you know, the way that when I'm like intuitively cooking, when I'm playing with recipes or making something new or just going for it, I don't worry so much about like how it's supposed to be. I really like to think about like, and this sounds funny, but it's like, how do I want to feel in my mouth? What do I want that experience to be like? What do I want each bite to be like? And so when I'm adding chocolate chips, that's what I like to think about is like, what's my perfect ratio of chocolate to batter? Like what feels really good to me? So that's what I invite you to explore is just like, what does that mean to you? And with most any ingredient, I mean, it's easy to always add more. It's really hard to take ingredients away. So I will say that like a great way to get started is just like add an amount that feels good to you. Check it out, taste it, try it, see if you like it, and then you can keep going. Cece said this dough is teenage boy approved. Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. That honestly, like, I don't know if it's just because I have tended to eat healthy for like the last decade of my life and like really been into nutrition in that time. And so maybe I'm a little bit just, that's my norm and like weird healthy things is normal to me. But that's really why I love this recipe, because I genuinely think that most people will like it. Like I did have a friend say, oh, I don't do beans. Like they don't make me feel good. So like, great reason to like not want to make this recipe. But I love that it's versatile enough for a teenage boy to love it. Like that's awesome. I feel like a huge win. I'm just gonna like mix around my chocolate chips, kind of fold them in. All right. I decided I wanted some more, as you can tell. We're starting to get there and look good. I will say too, off of Stacy's comment, that technically once you've added the chocolate chips, like you have made it. You have created your recipe. It's totally good to go, totally good to eat. You don't actually have to do anything else if you don't want to, which is the other fun thing, because I don't know about you all, but I was a huge cookie dough fan. Like eating raw cookie dough was, or most raw doughs, not like for bread, but like brownie batter, cake batter, like that was my favorite part of baking growing up. And you know, there is always the risk with raw eggs that might not be very good for you. So I love this recipe because there are no raw eggs, and it's really like the cookie dough of my childhood, just made a little bit healthier. Okay, so I got all my chocolate chips. I think I'm gonna do, I don't know, I'm torn. So here's kind of what mine looks like right now. It's a pretty good shot. I'll kind of smooth it out so you can see. Yeah, so that's sort of what we're hoping it roughly looks like. Alicia, yours might be a little bit more grainy, and that's okay. You know, like I said, this is all an experiment. We are just playing and having fun and creating, and there's absolutely no pressure or need to get it perfect. So I think my cookie dough is pretty ready to go. I'm gonna show you that, like I said, it's all ready dough. You're all set, you're done, but you can also turn it into cookies if you would like. So I'm gonna kind of show what that would look like as well, after my oven preheats a little bit more. With any sort of like bean-based treat, I find that using parchment paper is really great because it just like very cleanly comes off. So that's what I'm going to be putting on my baking sheet. Move these ingredients off to the side. How's everyone doing? Any questions or things I can help you with, or things you want to share or celebrate about your dough so far? It is all welcome. One thing I will say with parchment paper is it doesn't always love to like stay down. So one trick that I have for that is if you just take a little bit of cooking spray and just do like a light misting on the tray, it will help the parchment paper actually stay down a bit more. So I'm just going to walk you through this part in case there is anyone who wants to actually bake their cookies, which is totally an option too. And then you're just going to scoop about like 1 to 2 tablespoons roughly of cookie dough and just drop it into little rounds. I'll maybe switch the placement so you can see this better. And anytime you're making cookies, you generally want to like leave, you know, an inch or so of space in between. It really depends on the type of cookie and how big they're actually going to get. If no parchment paper or cooking spray, do you recommend foil or a bit of butter to grease the cookie sheet? Such a good question, Alicia. I would recommend butter would probably be the best. Foil, sometimes things can get weird and stick to it. So I would say that if you just like rub a stick of butter along the pan, that is going to be your best friend. And so I know that the recipe says like, 2 tablespoons. I'm really just winging it here too. That's something that I've probably reiterated 1,000 times today, but you really just get to like have fun, not make this a big deal, not put a lot of pressure on yourself to like make it look perfect. And just really, my hope is like to help you enjoy the process as much as possible. And no matter what they look like, they're going to end up tasting amazing. And that's kind of what it's about. I do like making my food beautiful, but I also prioritize it tasting beautiful over it looking beautiful. All right, so I'm going to kind of do half dough, half cookies. Alicia, how did your masher work out for you? I'd love to hear. I'm hopeful.
Well, at a certain point, I just was kind of tired of putting in the elbow grease. So I think there's going to be some bean structure in some of the cookies, but I felt that was fine for the effort I was willing to put in.
Beautiful. I love it. It's going to add some texture. It's going to be great. I love how you just like listened to what your desire was and you're like, I've put in the effort I want to put in and I'm good now. Yeah, good chunky cookie dough is awesome. It really does like add this whole new dimension to it, which is great. So I am just waiting for my oven to preheat now, which I honestly meant to do before this started, but we're human here. And then what I'm going to do for these ones, because I'm a big like salted chocolate chip cookie person. And I also have this really fun vanilla salt situation from the spice company that I've been dying to find different things to use it on. So I'm going to do half this Maldon, like the pyramid flakes salt on one half, and then a sprinkle of the vanilla salt on the other half. And when it comes to salting cookies, there's kind of no like right or wrong other than like what will you enjoy and what will be nice to you. I've heard people who are like, oh, the more salt the better, just like cover the top in salt. And I'm more of like, I want a little sprinkle and like a hint of salt here and maybe like a bite with a bit of salt and then one without salt. So that's what I'm personally going for when I'm salting my cookies today. All right, just a little sprinkle. And after I sprinkle them, I'm going to kind of very gently press them down in maybe a little bit more of a cookie shape. We'll see. But one thing I'll mention is that, like, as you probably noticed, it is very paste-like. So a good trick for the dough just not sticking to you entirely is if you just like lightly wet your hands a little bit beforehand. So putting the vanilla salt on. Cool. And just a little light press. Because I don't want to like soak up all of the salt that I just put on either. I went a little bit heavy on the water and pressing on one, so I'm going to add a little bit more salt to that one. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, and my oven just preheated. So here are my cookies ready to go in. And then you just bake them for roughly like 8 to 10 minutes. I personally think with most baked goods, other than like cakes, like, okay, maybe most baked goods is a stretch. I would say for me with cookies and brownies, that's all about cooking to your desired level of doneness. So like some of us love like really gooey cookies, which these naturally are because of what they're made of. Others of us might like more like crispy cookies. So just, you know, notice like how they're coming along and cook it to your desired level of doneness. Okay, great. How is everyone doing? Where is your dough at? Where are you at? What do you need? What are you enjoying? I'd love to know how I can help you. Or just celebrate where you're at with you too. Oh, it's so fun seeing all your faces and seeing you guys in your kitchens cooking and just being here with us. It makes me very happy. Mine are in the oven, almost done. Awesome, Kimberly. I was thinking it would be really fun. I know that we might all kind of finish ours at different times, but I thought it'd be really fun to sort of like taste everything together at some point. Or just when yours are done or when you feel complete, you're welcome to taste and just share what it was like for you and what your thoughts are on this recipe, how you feel about it. Yay. Okay, cool. Well, while we're kind of waiting for our cookies to be done, I just want to kind of open it up to any shares about what this experience was like for you, any little nuggets that you took away from today, any things that you want to, take into your cooking moving forward. And just anything that you feel like sharing with us. And feel free, or you can drop it in the chat or unmute yourself, whatever you're comfortable with. Anna said, I loved watching you put it all together. Looking forward to making tonight. I needed to eat lunch instead of cooking. Beautiful. I love that you're just listening to your body and giving yourself what you need, and that you're just here and showing up in exactly the way you need to today. That is so, so perfect. And feel free to let me know how they turn out tonight when you make them. I'd be excited to hear. Yay. Oh, this is so fun. So many humans I love in one virtual room. It's just really making my heart so happy. Kimberly said, I have never ever baked just for me. This is an absolute first. So thank you for motivating me. Oh my gosh, that is so exciting. Oh, you really have been like a very good eater your whole life then, because I definitely had days in college where I was like, I'm going to bake a whole tray of cookies for myself and eat them to my face. But I love that you got to have a moment of just like baking for you. I'm huge on cooking for others, as I think a lot of you know or like have seen in what I do, but I'm also such a huge fan of cooking for us. And that is really a big thing that JoyFull Food, the program I'm going to be sharing about, is all about, is like, how can we take this meal time, this moment that we have in our everyday lives, and really use it as like a devotion to ourselves, a practice of loving ourselves, of caring for ourselves, of doing something nice and beautiful and special for ourselves. And so I am just really honored, Kimberly, that this was the first time that you baked for yourself. So cool. Yay. That is true. Yeah, she said, remember, I have been a mom since I was college age. There was always a hungry little one to bake for. Good point. Good point. Makes a lot of sense. Always another mouth to give the cookies to. Alicia said, fun to have the tactile experience and also doing it messy. Without the blender, I'm not sure mine will taste great or have a smooth texture, but it's a pleasure research and an experiment. Absolutely. I'll be so honest that I've never made this recipe with a masher before. I just was like this week being like, wait, what if somebody doesn't have a blender? What if someone doesn't have a food processor? Like, I really wanted to make it accessible for everyone. So it's an experiment for all of us to do it with a masher. And I just so appreciate your willingness to just go for it, to roll with the punches as they've come up. And like you said, it's just all a huge pleasure research and experiment. So I just really love that you just made it as best as it could be given the circumstances. That's all we can do. And that's one of those ways that I'm like, cooking really mirrors life, because like, I'm sure Alicia wasn't like, oh, my blender is going to give out on me today. Like, that wasn't quite the plan. But we just kind of shift and change and allow it to unfold in a new and different way. Andrea said, also listening along, ran out of gas after showering, so just lying about relaxing. Perfect. Beautiful. I love it. Oh, I'm so happy and just like, yeah, I feel really honored that everyone felt comfortable and invited to show up exactly as you are, because that was my intention, was like, this is not about having to do this with me. This is not about getting it right. You just got to show up, be in the vibes, enjoy in whatever way that means to you. Cece said, and teenage daughter approved. Woohoo! Got, I think maybe the whole household, most of the whole household going. Love it. Alicia said, I also learned I love setting out the ingredients in advance in the order they are cited in the recipe. Ooh, what a great result of your pleasure research. That's so good to know. I, to be honest, like, never do that. I just did it today because otherwise half of the video would be my back turned to you guys, like trying to get things out of my kitchen. But it is really nice, like, in like traditional cooking culture, it's called like your mise en place. When you have everything laid out nicely in front of you, you've usually like chopped everything to the specifications or just like prepped the individual ingredient to its specification and just have it all in front of you, so that when you're ready to go and cook, it's just all there and you can grab it and you don't have to like stop to chop something or stop to grate something, which, you know, is a huge part of the time that cooking can take sometimes. So I love that you discovered that you are into your mise en place. That's beautiful. Awesome, awesome. Where's everyone's cookies or cookie dough at for those of us who made things today? I think some are in the oven, some are coming along. Mine, I know I have a couple more minutes left. I know we're gonna have to kind of like let them cool a little bit anyway. So what I'm thinking is I'll kind of dive into just sharing a little bit about JoyFull Food with you, if that's okay. And then we'll have some Q&A. We can eat our cookies. And I'll be sharing the black bean brownie recipe with you at the end as well for you to take home with you. I'm not gonna like demonstrate it, but I'm gonna give you everything you need to make those at home as well. So I am just really, again, so excited that you were all here today and to be celebrating my first official cook-along with all of you. Cook-alongs are going to be one of the core components in this new program that I'm currently launching called JoyFull Food. And JoyFull Food is this delicious reprogram, and I'm calling it a reprogram very intentionally rather than a program. And this like year-long food adventure to really bring joy and ease and pleasure back into your relationship with food, back into your relationship with cooking, all while deepening your own love, your own self-care, your own enjoyment of your life, and your own happiness. And the goal is to really just bring those elements back in for the sake of it, for the sake of having a more joyful, fulfilling, pleasure-filled life, because that's what I believe we all really deserve. And it's about noticing like where those edges are for ourselves, where we can bring in more joy in the day-to-day. And that is really why I'm focusing it around food, because, you know, as humans, we all have to eat. We generally have a couple meal times a day at least, if not more. And it's about making each of those moments sacred. It's about making every time you're eating, every time you're fueling your body, a really sacred experience for yourself. So JoyFull Food is a year-long, 12-month program with me, of course, where we're going to be cooking together and eating together and exploring food desires and the way that food feels in our body and the way that we fuel our body, and really shifting away from like letting go of the shoulds, the have tos, the restrictions, the deprivation, and just really tapping into how we want to feel and how we could create that experience for ourselves through our food. So in JoyFull Food, it's really going to be like this, like what you're experiencing today, where it's going to be a community of women who are all on the same mission to just add more pleasure, more ease, more joy to their lives through their relationship with food and cooking. And really coming back to that like intuitive, creative place. And I call it a reprogram because unlike, you know, some of my programs in the past where it's like we're doing really hard hitting mindset work, this is more of this like gentle reprogram. We're just being in the vibe and the energy of the program like you have been today, whether you cooked with us or not. Like you hopefully got a taste of what the way that I cook is like, and how you can kind of bring some of that ease, some of that creativity, that freedom into your own cooking. And so it's a reprogram in the sense that you don't actually have to do anything. Like there's going to be a monthly cook along. You can come show up and not cook with us, just like was the invitation today too. And just start to like learn some of these pieces that allow cooking to be more approachable, that allow food to be more approachable, that allow you to get back to a place where like you just have this like love affair with food, that you use it to nourish yourself, you use it to celebrate yourself. You are really in tune with like how different foods feel in your body and what really works for you, what doesn't work for you. And I call it a food adventure because unlike a lot of programs out there, I kind of want this to almost be like a break from programs and from work and from to-dos. I want it to be a little escape and a little like I call this a pleasure break from the day-to-day, where you just get to show up and do something for you, where you just get to show up and do something fun or something new or something creative. And so that's really what JoyFull Food is. I'm going to kind of go through just some of the like components that are in the program as well, so you really know what you're going to be getting. As I said, it is a 12-month program, a year-long journey, and we're going to have a monthly theme every month. So it's going to be things like intuitive eating, creating art with your food, cooking for friends and family or special occasions. And we're going to really touch on a whole bunch of things. That's why it's intended, or why it is a year, because we'll go through like all the seasons of our life in that year and really get to explore all those different pieces. Let me just grab the cookies out of the oven. All right, I'm gonna let them cool as I finish going through that. So we'll have a monthly theme, and with that monthly theme, we're gonna have a workbook. That's gonna have a recipe, like it'll have some more sort of tips and reflection prompts on the theme of the month. And then, as I said, we're going to have a monthly cook along. So really just like today. And that's why I wanted to do this, to really give you a taste, if you're considering joining, what it's going to be like, what the vibe is like, what the energy is like, what I like to work with in this way. And to really just like get to show up, cook what you want. You could cook something else that I'm not even cooking, but I'll be able to guide you through the recipe I am making and do that with you. So we'll have a monthly community cook along. We're also going to have a monthly virtual soiree, which that's kind of like a virtual happy hour where we're just going to gather, and you can bring, you could bring a glass of wine, you could bring a glass of tea, like whatever you feel like. You could bring nothing at all. You could be lying down, you could be in the bathtub, you could be on a walk, but where we're just like gathering to ask questions and talk about different food topics, different cooking things, get guidance around what's coming up for you throughout the program, and really have like my eyes on whatever is coming up for you, supporting you all the way through, and to be able to get like what is often called like hot seat coaching, where I'm really going to be able to support you with whatever's coming up. We're also going to have a private Facebook community, and I'm honestly so excited about this aspect. I know a lot of us are in a ton of Facebook groups, and my intention for this Facebook group is to really be a place to come, to celebrate what you're cooking, to share the flops, to share the wins, to cheer each other on, to branch out, try new things, to brag about something awesome that you created or some new thing that you didn't think that you could do, and to really like be a place to bolster that confidence around food and around cooking, while also being supported, getting to ask questions, whatever you need, that community is there for you. And there's going to also in that community be a dedicated Q&A thread for coaching. So we're going to have the monthly virtual soiree where you get coaching. We're going to have the cook-alongs where you get coaching, but you can also ask your questions anytime in the group, and I'll be responding to those as well. So it's really just, an entire year together. There's not like a ton of things that you're going to have to do. Really, each month we're going to have 2 main events. And otherwise, it's just being in that community, getting new tips and tricks and new recipes and trying things together. And I'm going to really be like in that group, sharing what I'm up to each day, sharing what I'm cooking, sharing something new that I did. So you can really see like exactly how I'm doing food on a day-to-day basis and how I'm cooking on a day-to-day basis. I think a lot of people, when they meet me or when they hear about how much I love cooking or like witnessed it on Instagram, think that I cook every meal every day. And that's just simply not at all true. I definitely use a blend of cooking for myself, but also I use a mix of takeout or of like meal, box delivery services, like where they give you like the meal kits. So I will be sharing all of those different things that I use in my day-to-day life. So that kind of goes over the whole program, but really it's just, it's really my hope that by the end of that year together, that you will feel the most confident around food and cooking that you ever have, that you'll know that you can rely on your own intuition, your own creativity when you get into the kitchen and create something just so delicious and beautiful for yourself, for your loved ones, that any of the things that have held you back when it's come to eating or come to cooking are no longer a thing in your life, that they're just sort of dissolved, and that you just are living this beautiful love affair with food, with cooking, where it's one of the greatest pleasures of your life, and also something that from the inside makes you feel just so good in your body, in your heart, in your soul. And that is my hope and my intention and my wish for all of you. And of course, I genuinely would love to have each and every one of you join me in JoyFull Food if you're feeling called. Right now and through the end of this month, through July 31st, I guess it would be, there's 2 ways that you can join us. You can either join us on a payment plan. It's $111 a month for 12 months, or you can pay in full, and I think that's $12.22 if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, $12.22 for the year. Either option this month saves you over $450 off the regular standard pricing, I guess you would say. That's not a very sexy term, but like the regular rate for the program. So you'll save $450 off when you join this month. And yeah, I'm so excited. Like this is like the thing that I am pouring all of myself into this year. It is really a culmination of like my life up until this point in so many ways. It's going to bring in the happiness teachings, the joy teachings, the pleasure teachings, and all the food and cooking goodness as well. So if you feel called, you can join by going to my website, which is www.haleyreese.com/joyfull, which is JoyFull. So a little play on joyful and full. So it's joyful. And I'll share that in the comments as well right here. So you can check it out. All the details are there. There's also there's still some spaces for a pay in full bonus. So what that means is that the first 10 women who sign up, and there's already a few of those spots taken. So the first 10 who sign up get a special pay in full bonus of 5 recipes from my collection of Easeful Eating. And Easeful Eating is this curated recipe service where it's really about like bringing luxurious like 5-star meals into your home. And so you'll get this collection of these 5 recipes. There's 1 breakfast, 3 main courses, and 1 dessert. And then I include a shopping list for everything that you'll need to make all the recipes. And I include cooking date ideas as well. So it's this beautiful like PDF guide to all these different recipes that you could make. And you get that if you're one of the first people to sign up and pay in full. Just a fun little bonus. And yeah, I think that is about it for the program. I'm going to drop that link in the comments here for everyone. There we go. And then I just kind of want to open it up to any questions. You're welcome to ask questions about JoyFull Food. You're welcome to ask questions about anything that we did today or anything that I sort of riffed on as I was walking you through what we were creating, from the way that I approach cooking or food or eating or just anything that you're curious about. I definitely want to just open up the floor to you. And I also wonder if everyone's cookies might be ready too. I'm gonna go grab one of mine and show you how they turned out. So here is my finished cookie. Wait, there we go. Still getting used to how these multi-camera situations work. Are other people's cookies out of the oven? I can't really tell from here. Oh yeah, Kimberly has hers. Yay. All right. Let's see how this batch turned out. I think I might need to bake them a little bit more, but very delicious nonetheless.
I can put them in. They've already been in for 15 minutes, but I can put them in longer.
How are you doing, Alicia? Are they a little bit like mushy still? They tend to be mushier, but
they're pretty mushy still. Yeah. Should I just put them in longer?
Yeah. It's really how like you feel like they're at a place that is enjoyable to you. I'm probably gonna put mine in a little bit longer too. But these ones, because they're made with beans, they do have, yeah, Kimberly said mine went 20 minutes and I turned the oven up to 350. That is the other funny / annoying thing about cooking sometimes, well, especially baking, is that like, depending upon your altitude, depending upon your oven, things don't always take the exact time that a recipe says. So like Kimberly did, just increase the time, increase the temp, you can roll with it. Everyone's oven can be different. Yeah, absolutely. I'm also sticking mine back in. I'm gonna try another 7 minutes. Oh yeah, Stacy. Yeah, Stacy said I had to mod a bit because I'm at high altitude. I have not totally gotten the high altitude baking down yet, but I'm working on it. I go to Tahoe somewhat regularly because we're pretty close by. And it's always like kind of a guess. I'm like, I'm gonna like underbake this to start with, and I could always add more time. Just said, I love how festive your kitchen looks. Me too. It's like bringing me so much joy. I'll give you like, there we go, the full picture. I actually like, this is kind of a part of what JoyFull is about to me, is like asking yourself, how can I add just like 5 or 10% more joy into this thing that I'm doing? Or like, how can this be like 5 or 10% more fun? Or really whatever emotion or feeling you want to elicit, just asking yourself like, what can I do to add even 1% more fun into this? And so when I was asking myself that question yesterday, what popped up for me was, oh, I could go we have a party store right across the street from us. I'm just going to go to the party store and get some fun things to make my otherwise like very plain white looking kitchen a little bit more fun and festive. So I love that you guys love it. Yeah, baking, Kimberly says, baking is one of those weird things where you have to try lots of things, but not in an intimidating way. Absolutely. Kind of something that not everyone knows about me now, because now I tend, even though like this was a baking class more so, I actually tend to focus more on cooking because, well, I can't eat as many baked goods as I would bake if I focused on baking. I mean, I could, but I tried that. And so when I was younger and growing up, like I actually got into cooking by way of baking. Like baking was the thing that I used to do all the time, especially in those, you know, after school times when I used up my computer time or my TV time. I was like, okay, I'm going to just like bake a pan of muffins. I'm going to bake a cake. And that's really how I got into cooking. It was just like this fun, creative thing to do. And like Kimberly said, it's like you just have to try lots of things sometimes. And eventually you're like, oh, okay, this kind of is like working for this recipe. This works better for this recipe. But sometimes like I'll make the same thing exactly the way I've made it before, and it still turns out differently, which is also a weird, fun thing about baking. But it is just bringing in that element of like, I can just roll with it. I can be creative. Like, it's no big deal. Like she said, not in an intimidating way. I think there's so much to be said about when we take that pressure off ourselves to be perfect or to get it right. It makes the process so much more enjoyable. And that is, again, like everything that we've touched on today is like something we're going to majorly be focusing on in JoyFull Food, because these, like, you know, putting pressure on ourselves to get things right or be perfect is something I personally have struggled with in like every other area of my life, not just in the kitchen, not just cooking, but by shifting our relationship to perfectionism or to being right in the kitchen and with cooking, it can help shift it in the other areas of our life as well. So I love that you brought that up too. It's like, we can decide that if this is intimidating or not. Like we can shift our thinking as well. It's just so cool how like everything is all intertwined. So yeah, anyway, I'd love to hear how did everyone like who made cookies or batter? How did it go? How did it turn out? Anything else that you want to share or any other questions that you'd like to ask? The floor is yours, and you're welcome to share in the comments and mute yourself, whatever you'd like. Kimberly's eating her cookies, so I feel like that's a good sign.
Only the crumbs, I swear. They're really good, actually. I just wanted to say thank you for like making me bake. And the fun fact about me is that I used to manage 2 cookie stores. So that's like, in addition to cooking for all those little ones, it was like, oh, flip it, do this, turn it up, you know, but like baking is it's so much about experience and like just trying one thing and trying the other. And it never turns out the same. So you have to always be looking at it like, how can I change it? How can I fix it? I'm a baker, not a cook. So this I can do all day. Just don't put me in front of some sauteed vegetables or I'll flip out. Anyway, thank you.
Cookalong should be.
I know, I'm sure it's going to be. I'm positive.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I've loved having you here. I love that I gave you an excuse to bake for yourself. I always keep forgetting that you worked at a cookie store. Like, I remember when you shared that story with me for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like so wild, like the overlaps in our passions and lives and life experiences. It's so fun. Tish said, I love how you weave in the mindset, work, joy, and acceptance into cooking. Oh, thank you. I love that you said that, because like, that's really why this new direction came about, because it's like, it's so me, it's so natural. It's like everything that I've worked really hard on learning in the last decade. It's everything that I've naturally been passionate about in the last decade. And it really does just work together so beautifully and produce like some fun, delicious results as well. Stacey said, I'm a much better cook than baker. Oh, see, this is so great. It's like we have like the things that we're naturally good at. And I love that we have a mix of cooks and bakers in this group today, because each of you, I heard like some different way that you like tried something new or opened up to something new or just gave yourself like exactly what you needed in this moment, and either embrace the skills that you know you already have and like celebrated that, or like tried this new thing that maybe isn't like baking isn't so much your thing normally, but still gave it a go. So I just really love and appreciate you all for being here. And I'm going to share now the bonus. Oh, here we go. The bonus black bean recipe, black bean brownie recipe. I'm going to type it in the chat here. I'm also going to send it out to you via email as well. So it's okay if you don't capture it there. But I thought I would just make sure to give it to you this way as well. Brownies. Okay. There you go. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Really, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you for being here, for showing up even when there was resistance or you wanted to give up before we started or wanted to give up while we were going. I saw so much resilience and just so much willingness to go for it and have fun and get creative and show up as you are and show up in the way that you need to show up today and give yourself this time just for you. And that is a really big freaking deal, especially in the world that we live in that is so go, 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 do, achieve. Today, you really gave yourself the gift of doing something fun just for you, out, hopefully maybe a little bit out of the norm, and also honored me with your presence and helped to celebrate my first official public cook-off or cook-along, and that is really, really meaningful to me. I'm never going to forget this experience, honestly. Like, seeing all your faces here, I really love each and every one of you, and I'm just so grateful to all of you. And, you know, like I've already shared, I genuinely would be so thrilled to have you in JoyFull Food. If you feel called, of course, there's no pressure to join, and I love you all the same. And, oh, I'm just so happy. I'm like, my heart is all warm and tingly. I'm just going to see, I had some messages come in. Okay, so Alicia said, thank you, Haley. This was so fun. Stretched my edges and didn't spiral into perfectionism instead approving of my chunky cookies. Yay! That deserves like a celebration dance, because I'll be honest, like I have definitely had things not go my way in the kitchen, and I have spiraled. It has happened more times than I'd probably like to admit. And like, that's a really real human-y aspect of this, but I'm just thrilled for you that you were able to like notice, okay, this wasn't quite growing right. This was a little chunky, literally and figuratively, not exactly what I was hoping for, expecting, but like just embraced it as it was and approved of it and didn't make yourself wrong for it. That is massive, massive, massive. So huge congratulations on that. Yay, Stacey said, thank you, Haley. Love trying a new recipe and a new method. Oh, I'm so excited to hear that. And I'm so thrilled that your teenagers loved it. Like, that is awesome. Like, anytime kids love healthy recipes, I'm like, yes, win. I think I'm going to be like a mom whose number one goal is seeing like how much healthy food can I sneak into the food that I cook for my kids? Like, how healthy can I make it without them noticing? Though I don't know if this actually works for kids, seeing as I'm not a mom yet, but I'm like, maybe if I just feed them really weird things from a young age, like their taste buds will adapt and like be used to the healthy things that I give them. It's my personal theory that I haven't tested in reality, but I'm gonna try it out one day. Just said, thank you, Haley. This was fun. Oh, I'm so glad that this was fun. So happy. Anna said, thanks so much. Oh, is the JoyFull Food at the same day and time? Great question, Anna. I'm so glad that you asked that. The dates and times for the JoyFull Food are kind of going to be different every month. They're going to be announced in the group a few weeks ahead of every live event. So you're going to have plenty of time to, get it on your calendar to prepare. And what I generally do with group programs is I really like to see like what's working for the group. When are people able to show up? Obviously has to be a time of day that I tend to be awake, but otherwise I like to see like, okay, this time it seems to be working well for people. I'll do more things at that time. Or, oh, like this time, like no one could really show up. So I'm going to be playing it by ear in that sense, but always giving people plenty of heads up and notice for when each live event is going to be. And there will be 2 every month. Andrea said, thank you. This was fun to experience. Oh, I'm so happy. Yay. I'm just so glad you all had fun. I hope you made something delicious or enjoyable in some way. I love that you all tried this brand new thing with me and had so much grace for my technical difficulties in the beginning and, throwing my spatula off the side of my counter and all those things. So again, I just really appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And I hope that you just have a beautiful, wonderful, joyful rest of your day wherever you are. And I'll see you all very soon. Bye.